Captain Paul here, and today we're going to talk about America's Great Loop, and we're going to talk about that day we leave, because I just remember it so vividly now, what happened to me, the mistakes that I made, because even that first day, I feel like that first part of the trip there, had I known what I know now, was probably one of the most beautiful parts of the trip. And I took it a little bit for granted, and I didn't, it was just inexperience and not knowing what I was doing. So we left from Gulf Shores, Alabama, Lulu's Marina. And any of you guys looping will know that, because that's the marina that when you come out of the river system and you jump into Mobile Bay there, Lulu's would be that first marina on the left-hand side going down when you jump into the intercoastal after leaving Mobile Bay. That's where I physically left from. So that first trip there, nothing went exactly as planned. I wanted to anchor in Destin Harbor. Now I have anchored in Destin Harbor several times on different boats, including my own boat, including Southern Estate has been out there several times now. But when I first did that loop in 2021, we got caught with another boat. It was a very interesting story, because we just started looping. It was April 15th. We figured we had a little bit of a late start, and we were getting ready to do our crossing. We were looking at our weather window, and it said we had about 7 days, and we had some decent weather to go do the crossing, because in wintertime, these storms can pop up very quickly, and so you got to be a little bit more cautious of doing that crossing from Carrabelle over to Clearwater. And that's not what today's video is about. Today is my actual leaving on April 15th, and like that first few days there of getting, the anxiety and stuff like that, because the very first day I left Lulu's, I ran aground probably about 2 hours into the loop. And there were some windy turns there. I wasn't paying attention on the navigation, and you learn very quickly that it's for real down here in the Keys or wherever you're starting from. You really got to pay attention to that chart and that chart plotter, and you make sure you stay out of trouble. So I learned very quickly. No damage or nothing like that. Just a shallow, I was coming around a corner, and the boat ran aground a little bit because I was talking to somebody on the radio and not paying attention to the chart. And it was like literally probably 15 miles from the home port from Lewis up by Fort McRae. It was just before you get to Fort McRae. There's some S-turns there, and I just miscalculated. I wasn't paying attention, and I ran into a little sandbar. And so the big mistake I made that first day is, I should have stayed in Fort McRae, which now I've anchored there several times on several different occasions in several different boats. Absolutely beautiful anchorage, probably one of the prettiest anchorages on the entire loop. Pretty sandy beaches, good anchorage, good holding. There's a rip tide that comes through there, so you got to be careful with that. But if you got a good anchor system, I've anchored right inside there, and I've anchored right outside of over there at Fort McRae. And it's just awesome to see the Blue Angels come on and off overhead and stuff like that. But I did not do this on my loop, so that was a huge mistake, especially for that first trip. So that first day we went we were going to Destin, and I kept telling Bev I want to stay at Destin Harbor. Well, we met up with some other loopers that day, and they said, hey, we're going to anchor on the other side. So Destin Harbor would be on, let's say, the north side of the intercoastal, and we ended up staying on the south side in a cove way back up in there in some marina. And if I had to do that all over again, I would have anchored inside of Destin Harbor, and I would have left myself 2 days in there. First of all, I would have stopped at Fort McRae for a day. Then I would have done Destin, and I would have stopped there for 2 days. But we didn't do any of that. We just went over to that marina up in the back of the cove here. And, it was okay. Nothing bad happened. It was just I missed Fort McRae. I've never anchored there before. And then I missed Destin Harbor, which, I don't know why, but, in the loop they say there's, it's tricky to get in there, and it's this, and there's no trick to getting in there. It was pretty simple. It's a pretty simple entrance, and it's a big wide open anchorage with plenty of places to park the boat, and even with the swing and everything like that. Now that I've done it I don't know, I've probably anchored in there now 10 times. Even on Southern Estate, I've taken Southern Estate in there probably 2 or 3 times. The last time I was in there, I had 2 boats tied off to me inside the anchorage there, and it's really protected from all the way around. So it doesn't matter which way the wind's blowing really in that anchorage. It's pretty decent protection inside there. So had I known all that during my loop, that would have been my first day, and I would have loved that much more than staying in the marina that I stayed in. And again, the theme here is that we had planned on doing a lot of anchoring and dinghying and stuff like that, and in the end we hardly ever used our dinghy, and we didn't do any anchoring until the end of the loop. And we'll talk about that more as these videos progress and stuff like that. And right now I want to just talk about the whole experience from getting from Lulu's over to Carrabelle, because that's, you know, a big part of the loop. And I think, you know, my mindset was, okay, so we stopped that first night, and then the next night we stopped in Panama City, and that we did do a anchorage. The second day we stopped at what they call Smack Bayou. It's right outside of Panama City Marina. I've actually stayed in that cove a couple of times now. And I've also stayed at just about, not all of them, but most of the marinas over there. I've either pulled in for fuel, or I've stayed at a lot of those marinas over there in Panama City. Not a really big mistake. I mean, that got our feet wet on anchorage, and you can see right here in the on the Navionics chart that it had good holding, great anchorage. It was tight in there, and so you're really protected from just about weather from every direction. So it was our first experience on the hook, and you know, just we had a really good experience with that. And I don't know why we didn't do more anchoring. I think it was more because of Daisy and stuff like that, that we didn't do more anchoring. And then the next day we get up and we head to Carrabelle, but we stop at Apalachicola City Marina, and we ended up staying the night there. At one of those there's a little boardwalk there with a marina, and you know, it was okay. It was they've changed that a lot, and that continues to change. Like the hurricane did a lot of damage over there, but the marina was okay, and the food was good there, and you know, it was an okay stop. We get up and we head over to Carrabelle, where we stopped at Sea Quarters and we got fuel, and we ended up staying at Sea Quarter at the marina there. And especially if you got a little bit smaller, like a 40-foot trawler, it was just convenient, and that's where we stayed and staged to make a crossing. And in the next video here, I'm going to talk about the crossing and what we did, and how we why that was a factor for us, and why we made that decision to do the crossing instead of doing the jumps from the little cities. I haven't done a complete jump of the little cities down around there, but now I have done a hybrid version of that, because we stopped at Cedar Key when the weather started to get a little rough. We just pulled in there one time, because I've done this crossing now probably around 10 or 12 times. Anyway, we'll start that on the next video of talking about after we get to Carrabelle, and then from Carrabelle on up to let's say the Florida to the Okeechobee waterway. And the reason I want to talk about that is because you'll have that decision to make to whether to go do Okeechobee or the Keys. And again, now that I've done it several times, I've done both several times. So I'll talk about that in the next video. Anyway, peace out. Thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate it. And make sure you're sharing it with your friends, family, and thank you guys. I appreciate it. Bye.